If you are an electric car owner, you have a few challenges that you had to overcome compared to pretty much everybody else who drives a regular gas car. But when it comes to power outages, electric car owners are also affected more than others. And yes, power outages just suck, and we just had a few of them here in Northern California. They were not by accident. They were actually planned power outages by our company PG&E here, that decided that that would be the best way how not to spread wildfires. Now, I kind of call BS on that. I think it's just laziness and greed and a lot of other things, but we'll get into that in just a second, because Eli Burton of My Tesla Adventure is going to be here to talk about it, but also tell us, especially if you are an electric car owner, how this is affecting you and what has been happening with Tesla and other electric car drivers, and what you can do to prevent some of these inconveniences. And also, as you know, Tesla and a few other companies, the green energy companies that are producing products that technically can prevent that, like solar panels, but didn't. So let's get into that. Eli is going to be here in just a second. As you can see right here, Supercharged with Eli Burton is our weekly segment. But before that, a quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by Climate Exchange with their Tesla raffle. That's right, only 4,000 tickets are going to be sold, and the winner gets any Tesla he or she wants, up to $195,000 in value, which basically any configuration. They're really stepping it up from last year, and they're a non-profit environmental organization. So even if you don't win, your money is going for the good cause. Go to the description of this video to enter the raffle. Today, unfortunately, it is limited to the United States. All right, without further ado, let me bring Eli, and we're going to talk about what's been happening this week in California. Eli, how you doing, my friend?
Alex, glad to be on, and luckily I have power, or otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this show with you.
We would not be able to do the show. I'm happy that I think, counties have not been as affected. I know my parents who are in the Bay Area have been affected. So tell a little bit to our viewers, especially who are outside of the California, even in California, who were not affected by this. What happened, why, and how this affected all of the electric car owners. I'm laughing, but it's actually pretty sad. Go ahead.
So what's been happening the past week or so is that PG&E suddenly announced that they were going to have to turn off a significant percentage of the grid that includes high voltage power lines, because there's high winds in some of these valleys in California. And as a result of the fires that happened last year and over the last couple of years, putting PG&E on the hook for $10 billion in damages, they're now taking safety as a real consideration, and they're shutting off power to places of their infrastructure that they're concerned that can't handle the wind. And that's resulted in leaving millions of residents in Northern California and the Bay Area without power. And that includes some people losing power for a week.
That is insane. Now I'm kind of I know they've avoided shutting down power to some of the really essential services like hospitals and police and fire stations, but nevertheless, people who relied on some of the stuff that they need at home, especially people with some of the health issues, that's definitely big problems. Now let's talk about the problems that electric car owners and green energy product owners have encountered, and what can be done in the future to avoid that.
Yeah, so here's what's being ran into. As this sudden power outage was being announced, it became a concern for electric vehicle owners, which primarily was Tesla owners, because a lot of people rely on home charging for their needs. And then the other concern too was, are these superchargers going to all still be powered? Because some of these superchargers were in places that the surrounding area had days and hours and periods that it was cut from power. So it was a real major concern for people, especially for people who relied on charging at home.
Right. So, and that's where people should charge. But we should mention that if you live in a neighborhood where you're charging at home, or if you in the neighborhood that has a fast charging supercharger or Electrify America, whatever network you're using, though there's some chargers that are just regular speed level 2, they're out of power as well. So you're kind of out of luck. I know a lot of people who did rely on that ended up having this long lines at the superchargers and other charging stations, and it kind of created a bit of a panic. But what do you really do in this case? What are the options? And what is that exposing a weakness of the electric cars, at least at this point?
So you're totally right about it creating a bit of a panic. And it's exactly the same type thing that happens like on the East Coast when hurricanes come, right? Stores get completely cleared of water and bread and basic necessities. That's basically what happened here is a bunch of people were concerned, rightfully so, and it caused people who maybe wouldn't normally supercharge to be supercharging and supercharging to max power to make sure that if a power outage hit at an unexpected time, that they could continue to operate through their next day. I mean, even I did it. There was a day that I went and supercharged because I had to go to an area that I was concerned would potentially be cut from power. So I went and did a supercharging trip and spent longer at a supercharger than I normally would. So for a brief bit of bubble, we had a period where there was a lot more demand on the network that started causing long lines. Now, what do you do about these type of things? So at the moment that one of these things are happening, unless you've taken some precautions ahead of time, it's all reactionary. But how do you plan for these things in the future? One of the big things that you can do is you can invest in actually doing battery backup, Tesla power walls, or other home battery options for your home so that when these moments strike, you've got at least 10 kilowatts plus of power available for you in emergency need.
Well, so explain a little bit what the Powerwall is, and I know that's a product from Tesla, but there are other alternatives as well, because this is very important. Now, people who had solar panels, and we had a sunny weather, so that's the fear of fires. Even though the sun was generating the energy for them, they were not able to power their own home from their own solar panels. Tell us why that was, and also how does this battery things and what are they can solve that problem?
So yeah, that's one of the things with solar that a lot of people think, oh, if you have solar, you can just power your home, and not the case for a lot of these solar systems. So the way these solar systems work, if you don't have a power wall, which is a giant battery, is when you produce solar energy, it's being sold to the grid, but you're actually pulling energy from the grid to consume. So it's not actually a direct path of solar energy to your house. What Powerwall does allows you to do, Tesla's Powerwall in combination with Tesla Solar, is it can actually charge straight to the battery. So it'll pump energy to the battery, and then your home will take current from the battery using an inverter that it can consume. So having the Powerwall actually does allow you to use your solar energy if the grid is down, when otherwise you wouldn't be able to.
Absolutely. And this is, I think a lot of people got caught by surprise thinking like, hey, I'm good, at least for the day while the sun is out. And this is why I love this product. I think it's so underrated, and that's why I'm so mad at Tesla that they're not really moving forward and producing enough of them. They're back, back orders on this in I think months and months and months. But once it's available, and once the competitors are going to catch up with the demand, this is essentially the way to kick out this ridiculous utility companies. I mean, even though I wasn't affected, I'm so upset that they still in 2019 were not able to figure out how to not cause fires that they recently caused and killed a bunch of people. So now their answer is like, well, just going to cut power from you guys, we're out.
It's absolutely absurd that we're in a state that is the fifth largest economy in the world, and we've allowed a private company to have a massive energy market monopoly and is allowed to do these things and hasn't been forced to make the necessary infrastructure upgrades to prevent these things from happening. And that it took large numbers of fires that resulted in massive devastation and a significant number of deaths before they even started taking these precautions. So the fact that we're even in this situation is insane, shouldn't happen, and it's a perfect example of crony capitalism at its finest. So it's unfortunate that we're here, but if you live here and you're downwind from these issues, something you got to really take into consideration on taking precautions for, because if it's happening now, it's going to happen again. If this is now their new MO, when wind gets past a certain place, that power shuts off, that's what's going to happen now. And you better believe it's going to be quite a long while before they shell out the money to fix those infrastructure upgrades rather than just leave us without power. I mean, even Tesla now is taking some precautions for the regions that are being affected. And Elon Musk just tweeted out just a couple days ago that Tesla is now actively, as fast as possible, working to put power walls at all the Tesla superchargers in the areas that are affected by this outage, so that when this happens in the future, there's at least a buffer between when power goes out and these superchargers lose the ability to provide power to the owners who need to charge.
No, and that's exactly so. Tesla's solving that problem with their own product for their supercharging stations, which is great. And I know Electrify America, the alternative fast charging network that's also been growing in the United States, already has a contract with Tesla to do the same. As a matter of fact, Tesla is a little bit behind on their own product with their own superchargers. But all right, so outrageous side, there's another technology that V2 G or whatever. I hate it. That's why I probably do not remember the name, but it's basically supposed to be vehicle to grid, right? Or vehicle to home. So this is where you use the battery of your car to power your home while it's sitting in the garage doing nothing. Now, I've always been against that technology because car needs to be a mobile device where you can take it and drive it for as long as possible. And so if it has a low battery because it's just provided the electricity for your house, because you're trying to save money on getting the electricity from the grid, that's ridiculous. And plus, everybody should be moving to solar anyway. This is a temporary solution. However, this is one of the few cases where I actually think that this is a great idea if each vehicle that we buy, an electric car vehicle, where the electricity is reversible, if you will, that you can actually use the car power from the battery to power your home, because powering your home, especially if you have people who need this for their oxygen tanks and stuff like that, is more important than going out somewhere or taking a road trip. What do you think about that technology specifically for this scenario of power outages?
So I've actually since I've heard it, thought about this concept, I've actually always been a favor of having the option of going from vehicle to grid or vehicle to home, even outside of emergencies, because the way I see it, that if we all of a sudden could activate this, I don't even know what the megawatt hours or terawatt hours of battery storage we have that exist in all Tesla cars. But if we activated that and actually made that an option, we could suddenly have a way to really make renewable even more feasible faster, because we could provide the grid with an unbelievable amount of storage that will take them a lot of time and a lot of money to build. But I think for situations like this really proves of it being a nice to have for everyone, to seeing there being a real need. Yeah, it'd be fantastic if an emergency, my car that holds 100 kilowatts and maybe it's half charge, whatever, if it could be tapped into to help provide emergency backup power to my home. So yeah, I actually love the idea of the technology already. And I think it will happen eventually. Again, as I understand that it's not as simple as it seems. There are some challenges involved in doing that. There's some other components that would have to be added to the car that you couldn't do it as is, but the battery is definitely capable of it. And I saw a video recently of a guy who had taken I think it was 100 kilowatt battery pack from a wrecked Model S, and he actually converted it to his own home Powerwall system. And obviously this guy had some pretty advanced technical capabilities to do this, but he was showing us the display, and he actually had the display from the Model S hooked up to the battery pack. So the battery, the pack still thinks it was part of a car and was providing feedback, but he used it as the power source for his home. So the batteries are definitely capable of it.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize that the battery for the car is very powerful. Driving the car takes a lot of energy. For the same type of energy, you can still power up your home and have air conditioning or heater running and stuff like that. Though granted, most of our devices now use very low, power. So that's very possible, where the cars still use a lot of power to move us and batteries and go very, very, very fast. So I don't think people realize how much power is hidden in those batteries. So, all right, well, listen, I hope this is a wake-up call for, and we're going to leave politics to politicians. I mean, we can talk about, how much this, basic need of private companies should be regulated, though we're in California. So if, they definitely regulated the most out of anywhere in the United States. We're very liberal and very much a state that regulates almost everything. So even with that, this is going on. But I hope it's a wake-up call for, like business owners and homeowners. And I hope more people actually try to disconnect from the grid. Though I also hope we pass some laws where you don't have to be connected to the grid. You can just get the electricity directly from your own damn solar panels. Any other wishes besides this, and while I lower my blood pressure?
Yeah, I think absolutely people should be able to have power and not have to be connected to the grid if they don't want to be. And at least at the very least, be able to pull power from their energy producing systems to their home directly when the grid isn't operating. And again, there's some solutions to bridge that gap, but yeah, we've got to really relook at and rethink energy. And it's one of the things that politically and companies that one of the things that has been done intentionally is that being dependent on the powers that be for energy is a very important means of societal and global control. It's that way across the world. So I think that's going to be a constant struggle. And something in the past, the idea of energy freedom was never possible, right? You couldn't, like, no individual person could take natural gas, could take gasoline, and effectively on any scale turn it to energy. But now that we have renewables, this whole idea of freedom from the pump is going to expand into people's home lives. And I hope to see in the long term, there be a movement of people seeking not just energy independence from fossil fuel, but independent energy independence from everyone else.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's a catch-22 because the reason we have this wildfires is because of climate change, and the climate change is because of all of the diesel fuel, and it's just, I mean, we have so much work to do here, and I wish we would do also a better job in explaining the science and other issues that we have with not just the climate change. I mean, electric cars are not just about climate change, but I don't want to get into too much politics. So I'm just going to say,
I don't either. Let me comment one thing on the climate change. I thought it was really funny that in PG&E's statement about why they had to do this, one of the reasons they blamed it on why they had to shut this power grid off was because the unanticipated impacts of climate change, which, by the way, them and the other energy companies have been one of the people who've taken part in fighting the narrative that that's even happening, because it went against their business interests, because their energy production mechanisms involve in increasing climate change. So it was funny to see them in a PR statement try to use climate change as an excuse for why they had to do this and why they weren't prepared for it.
All right. Well, listen, you know what? I'm gonna leave the rest of the discussion on that in the comment section that I know probably filling up right now. Meanwhile, let's talk about something exciting, which is your My Tesla Adventure trip that I myself am definitely going on, as I've been for a few years now. Tell everybody about it, and also tell us if there are any actually space left for that.
So we have our next My Tesla Adventure event coming up on October 26th. We're doing a meetup, drive, and private dining event in the Bay Area. So if you're in the Bay Area, go to facebook.com/myteslaadventure. Check out the event. So we're a club, we're a community that doesn't do a ton of events, but the ones that we do, we really make them high quality and make them an awesome experience, because I know how valuable your time is. My time is under constant demand. So we make sure that we have these events and everybody comes, has a great experience, a good time, and something that isn't what they normally do in their everyday life. So if you're in the Bay Area, out of town visiting, we'd love to have you join the event if there's still tickets left. And you can find those and find out more at facebook.com/myteslaadventure.
And they can see us argue back and forth in the real life in 3D. So I think that's another thing that's definitely worth the money. All right, cool, man. Yes, we'll have it in the description of this video. Great to have you. I will see you next week.
Awesome, Alex. Thanks for having me.
All right, cool. So just like I said, I vouch for these events myself. I don't think I've missed one. I might have been overseas for one, but yes, it's always been really, really awesome experience. So go to My Tesla Adventure, really website or Facebook or whatever. Also, there's a link in the description of this video, including my Google Assistant just turned itself on for some reason. Did I say anything? No. Including the link to Eli's podcast, which is also fun. Quick shout out to one of my newer Patreons, Jack Levy. Thanks so much for supporting me on Patreon. Thank you to all of my Patreons who get to see most of my videos live. That's That's one of the perks. And thank you for supporting me as an independent YouTuber and putting food on my table, really. But if you don't want to shell out any money at all, I still have something for you. And you can still support the channel, of course, by signing up with our VIP list. It's absolutely free. You can go to e4electric.com/VIP, and I will send you a bonus story that I just wasn't able to fit into my schedule, in my daily schedule. So that you can get at e4electric.com/VIP as well. All right, I'm sure there are tons of comments already in the comment section. Please keep it civil. We tried, right? So you please do that as well. We're looking forward to your comments. Other than that, I will see you next time, and remember to stay charged.